Federalist number 62, James Madison, the guy who dreamed up the whole deal, explained that the House of Representatives was great, but that it was subject to sudden and violent passions. It could be tempted into intemperate and pernicious resolutions, and therefore you needed another body, less numerous than the House, that, quote, ought moreover to possess great firmness and consequently ought to hold its authority by a tenure of considerable duration. He was talking about the United States Senate. I bring you the leader of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell. Good morning, Senator. Welcome. Congratulations on the capstone of your career, the confirmation of Justice Barrett.
Yeah, thank you very much. Madison certainly accurately described the current situation, didn't he?
He was kind of a genius, and we know his flaws, but we know his genius. The Senate has got to be firm. And you were when Justice Scalia died, and you were when people urged you not to move the nomination of Justice Barrett. Would you explain your thinking for not just the voters in Kentucky who you faced Tuesday, but on behalf of all your colleagues in the United States Senate who need re-election on the Republican side?
Well, it's not complicated. The Constitution provides us as sort of co-partners with the president in filling vacancies. And it's not surprising when you have a Senate of the same party as the president, there's a lot more willingness to move and to move quickly. And that's what we did with regard to the Ginsburg vacancy. However, the amount of time we took from nomination to confirmation was well within the norm. If you look back over American history, as you know, the typical time from nomination to confirmation. I'm glad that we were able to do it. I'm glad we were able to do it before the election so the American people could weigh the consequences of handing the Senate over to the hard left, which is what the Democratic Party is these days.
Now, Leader McConnell, Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, was just on. We were talking about you behind your back. And he said there is such a thing as a legislative temperament, which is different from the executive temperament. It emphasizes deliberation, discussion, debate, listening, and occasionally it has to act fast, though. You had to act fast after Justice Scalia died unexpectedly, and you had to act fast after Justice Ginsburg died unexpectedly. Did you have any doubt at either of those points that you were doing the right thing?
Not at all. I mean, let's go back to 2016, which the Democrats conveniently leave out what I said, which was that when you have divided government, you have to go back to 1888 to find the last time a Senate of a different party of the president filled a vacancy on the Supreme Court created in a presidential election year. They also ignored that Joe Biden, currently the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, was chairman of the Judiciary Committee in 1992, a time of divided government. And so he gratuitously announced that should there be a vacancy, they would not fill it. That was George H.W. Bush running for re-election. And then 18 months, before the end of Bush 43's 8 years, Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid announced that if a vacancy occurred, they wouldn't fill it. So, look, if the shoe had been on the other foot, I'm pretty confident that they would have acted in the same way. What we did was entirely consistent with history and tradition. I'm proud of what we did. 3 Supreme Court justices, 53 circuit judges. Until last Monday, there wasn't a single vacancy on any circuit court in America. And that hadn't happened since 1980. So I think it's the single most significant long-term contribution we've made to the country to put young men and women on the bench who believe in the quaint notion that maybe the job of a judge is to actually follow the law.
A very practical question, Leader. There is now a vacancy on the 7th Circuit for which there is nominee, and the death of a First Circuit judge has opened up a vacancy on that circuit. Certainly that was not expected and is to be regretted. But do you expect the Senate to fill those 2 positions in the lame duck term after the election?
Well, we're going to run through the tape. We go through the end of the year, and so does the president. We're going to fill the 7th Circuit, and I'm hoping we have time to fill the First Circuit as well. And we are, by the way, confirming a district judge as soon as we get back after the election, and we're going to clean the plate, clean all the district judges off as well.
I really appreciate that. I hope after the election, Senator Harris or Senator Feinstein will remove the block to Rick Richmond and other great Californians. But let me talk to you about this capstone. 3 Supreme Court justices. I don't know that a leader in history of the Senate has put through 3. Am I wrong about that? It certainly they haven't happened in modern times. Maybe it happened under FDR, but I don't believe a leader of the Senate has had to put through 3 Supreme Court justices in 4 years.
Well, particularly under these circumstances, we know why the vacancy was there for Gorsuch. We had an extremely controversial nomination and the next Supreme Court justice, and then the unusual nature of the third. So I'm not sure what other majority leaders have done, but they probably didn't have as many interesting challenges to get through 3 judges in a 4-year period. I'm proud of what we've done. I think it is a great consequence, and I'll leave it to historians to decide who was the best majority leader.
Let me ask you about the Senate. Recently, you said you were feeling that it was a 50-50 call whether you would retain the majority. I think it is dangerous to lose the majority. I am really praying for Susan Collins in Maine and Joni Ernst in Iowa and Martha McSally in Arizona. And yeah, I mean, those are 3 great different people, but then you got these businessmen, David Perdue in Georgia and Tom Tillis in North Carolina. They're very different people. We need John James in Michigan. We need Jason Lewis in Minnesota. Are you feeling better about the 50-50% that you gave 10 days ago?
Well, actually, I've been saying 50-50 all year. And the reason for that, Hugh, is because we have so many members up. We have 23 members up. They only have 12. The reason for that is this is the class that took the majority back in 2014. We elected a lot of new Republican senators in 2014, and so now we have a lot of exposure. So I've actually been saying 50-50 for well over a year. We've got a whole lot of close. I describe them as like a knife fight in an alley in about 6 or 8 different places. But we've got great candidates. I'm optimistic we can hold on. But, yeah, it's a 50-50 proposition.
Now, what do you see generally about the election nationally? Because as normal, the polls have changed dramatically over the last 2 weeks from predicting a blowout for the Democrats to, oh, my goodness, it's too close to call. It happens every 4 years. I'm used to it, but the American public sometimes forgets. How do you feel about the reelection of the president right now, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, I think since the last debate, the president has improved dramatically. And, of course, who would have anticipated after what we've been through with the pandemic that we'd have the largest GDP expansion in the third quarter since 1950. I think the economy is struggling to get back on its feet. That's the one area the president has continued to dominate in all the polls. People have more confidence in him to deal with the economy than Joe Biden. I think that's a correct assumption. This GDP growth in the third quarter only underscores that this administration knows what it's doing when it comes to the economy, and we're going to recover from this. When we get the vaccine, we're going to put this dread disease in the rearview mirror.
When the vice president, your old friend, and you've known Joe Biden for a lot of years, in the second debate remarked that he was in favor of transitioning from the oil industry, yes, because it pollutes. I don't know where you were, and I don't know what your reaction is, but do you remember?
I do, and that's an incredible number of jobs. And, of course, even though he says now he's against, he's not in favor of banning fracking, that's exactly what he said during the contest for the nomination. That would, of course, destroy an additional record number of jobs. So I think, Hugh, it's pretty obvious these guys are hard left these days. Change the filibuster rule, admit D.C. and Puerto Rico as states, giving them 4 new Democratic senators in perpetuity, hacking the Supreme Court, even though Justice Ginsburg said just last year 9 is the right number. This is a level of radicalism I've not seen in the Democratic Party in my lifetime.
Are you concerned, Leader McConnell, about oversight vanishing in the event that you were to lose the majority and Joe Biden win? I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, I'm feeling better today than I have in weeks, given the latest numbers. But if it were, I am afraid that oversight will be more necessary than ever in the Senate, particularly given the Bobulinski story, which the media won't talk about, but I'm sure of which you are aware. Is oversight, should that be on the minds of people voting for senators?
It should, as well as all the things that I just mentioned that they will do. They will do it, Hugh. They're not kidding. They've been talking about that all year. It didn't just pop up when we ended up confirming Judge Barrett. This Supreme Court packing issue has been around all year long. And, of course, there would be no oversight at all, as you suggest. of any scandals or anything that might reflect badly on the Democratic administration if there's a Democratic majority. Now, the solution to this is 51 Republican senators. The one thing the majority leader can do that others cannot do in the Senate is to decide what we're going to do, to set the agenda. My biggest decision on agenda setting, obviously, was the decision not to fill the Scalia vacancy, but it applies to a whole lot of other things as well. If Chuck Schumer is setting the agenda in the United States Senate, you can predict the worst. We will go hard left. The country will not look the same after 2 years of that as it does today.
By hard left, would you expand on that a little bit? Because I believe you've mentioned it, but I want the American voter to really reflect on what the Democrats will do if they get all three branches of government.
All right, let me kick it off. Radicalism is eliminating the filibuster, admitting 2 new states that will certainly elect Democratic senators to give them control long term, packing the Supreme Court. And once they get through doing that, then they'll turn their attention to the economy and they'll raise taxes and overregulate like they always do.
So every voter in Maine who is considering Susan Collins, and in Arizona who is considering Martha McSally, or in Iowa considering Joni Orth, they have to consider that, not just the greatness of those 3 women, but the agenda that they stand against.
Yeah, I mean, the first vote any Democratic senator will cast next year will be to make Chuck Schumer the majority leader of the Senate. So a vote for any of these Democrats means to enable a Democratic majority to set a radical agenda for America.
Now, I want to close by asking you about your race, Leader McConnell. They poured, how much money have the Democrats poured into Kentucky?
It's about $100 million, Hugh, in a state with 4.3 million people. It's been an interesting experience to see yourself trash every day for well over a year. But I'm a big boy. I can defend myself, and I fully intend to next Tuesday.
It can't be pleasant, but at the same time, I follow the polls in the Bluegrass State pretty well, and the vote is going to go in your favor fairly decisively. What does the Democratic Party achieve by trying to knock off Lindsey Graham, who's not going to be beaten, or John Cornyn, who's not going to be beaten, or Mitch McConnell, who's not going to be beaten? It's a waste of their party's money.
Well, you have to salute them. This Act Blue website has produced enormous amounts of money for races all over the country. And we need to get better at that on our side, and I think we will through our website, Win Red. Small dollar donations in significant amounts are, I think, the wave of the future. Regretfully, the Democrats figured that out before we did. But we're heading in that direction ourselves. If we can deal with these funding deficits, I think we'll be just fine in the future, and we know how to do that now.
Right. And the very last questions, Leader McConnell. People have not talked about what the Republicans will do if they sweep. And I believe there's a chance, and I believe these numbers show that there's a chance. I think Tim Scott's police reform would come forward, and it would be supported by the Republicans. I believe a growth agenda will come forward. What else will happen? And you will continue to reform the courts into what they're supposed to be, a branch that interprets and doesn't rule. What else is on the agenda if what the media hopes doesn't happen, in fact, does come to pass?
Well, that's a pretty big agenda right there. And if I'm the majority leader instead of the minority leader, judges will come first, and we'll continue to put strict constructionists on the bench for at least another 2 years. And I think we need to make a careful, calculated decision about what more to do to deal with this coronavirus. We're throwing money at the search for a vaccine, which is the wise thing to do. We probably need to do another package, certainly more modest than the $3 trillion Nancy Pelosi package. I think that'll be something we'll need to do right at the beginning of the year to target it particularly at small businesses that are struggling, at hospitals that are now dealing with the second wave of the coronavirus, and, of course, the challenges for education, both K through 12 and college.
Well, I have to conclude by saying, as the CEO of the Nixon Foundation, and we got a PPP loan, I would have had to fire so many more people so much sooner. I know that Susan Collins in Maine and Marco Rubio in Florida helped you with that, but that PPP may be the biggest legislative thing you've done. I do believe you saved millions of jobs with that.
Yeah, and Senator Collins and Senator Rubio deserve the credit. They literally created this program and put it in the CARES Act, and it has been an enormous success. Just to give you an example in my state quickly, we've got 50,000 businesses in Kentucky that have drawn down $5.2 billion in these forgivable loans, and many of them just simply wouldn't be there but for the program, and that does need to be replenished, and that's why we need to do another rescue package.
Well, good luck in holding the majority, Leader McConnell. You're very good at this job. It's very rare when the skill sets match up exactly with what the framers wanted, and you've got it matched. Thank you for joining me. Continue to press on. Congratulations on 3 Supreme Court nominations successfully guided through the United States Senate.
Thank you.